All right, time to get started. Okay. And the stream is up and running. Everything looks good. Okay. All right, so just like last time, what I am doing is I am preparing for the talk I have on, well, it's either Thursday or Friday. I have to go take a look again. It's one of those 2 days. It's a conference talk in which I'm talking about how to stave off burnout by making art with code. The code specifically in this case is web development using p5js to make just nifty little things. So the other day I made something I thought was really cool. I made this fire. I like this a lot. It's sort of a nice little way of like creating just little circles, but having them, look like fire together. It was experimenting with particles. So today I wanted to take the same sort of particle idea and apply it to something I've always wanted to sort of try to recreate, which is fireworks. I want to make it something so we see a trail of something going up and then a little explosion of, I guess, more particles. And they that's what we're going to do today. So with that being said, let's create a new GitHub repo. So let's do last one was fire. This is gonna be fireworks p5. Okay, stay there. What do I call it? Fireworks. And everything's still working fine. Okay, perfect. All right, so let me also, I want to share this repo with you guys. So that way, if you want to follow along or see this or just keep it off to the side, or if you're watching a VOD of this later, I just got a notification that the new iOS or the mobile devices actually have chat replay, which that's super interesting and nice. Hopefully, that link will now be available to you. All right. With that being said, let's touch index.html. main.js. I don't really know of anything else we need offhand right now. So let's just get into it. Title is going to be Fireworks with. All right, I'm able to read it on my smaller screen, so hopefully this is big enough for you guys. We are going to also need p5js itself, so let's go get that. All right, so with that all being said and done, we should now be able to head over to main.js and set up a function. Make the monitor slightly brighter for myself. There we go. Function. What is it? Setup, I think. And instead of here, we need to create canvas. How big should we make this? We can try. I'm curious how big this is. We can make it something like 950, or 1024 is a little bit big for this, so maybe 900 by maybe like 600 down. And then we'll have the function raw. And in here, let's just do the quick test that everybody seems to do. So we'll just say ellipse at divided by 2, 8 divided by 2, 50. So nice circle. And let's open up this. Fireworks. There we go. Nice little circle right in the center. Perfect. Okay, so the plan here is to create the following. Oh. Give me 1 second, I just had a whole bunch of audio play right behind me. All right, I'm back. Hey Chantilly, welcome to the stream. All right, so what do we want to do? Well, let's figure out what is a firework really. It's going to be the payload, right? It's going to be like a shell and it fires up. And so we'll see that like moving up and then it'll explode and the particles come out of that. So it sounds like what we need is some ability to have this thing come out. When it's done, it has to tell the particle system to start to like explode out as particles, and then when that's done, the entire thing can be removed from memory. So maybe we can have like a firework, like an entire firework class, but that itself has a couple of other instances of classes that it uses. So it's going to have maybe the like the particles themselves. That the particle could be a class, and we could have the little launch tube thing. That's a class. So let's think about that. If we create just a firework class. Class firework. And we'll have to have a constructor. I was hesitating there because I'm not actually sure if I want to put like a location in here, because do I want to have multiple fireworks go off and maybe like I start them at a like slightly below or right at the ground level and then it goes from there, or I can have a launcher, a series of launchers at the ground and then we watch them fire off. Both those things actually sound like that might be interesting. What we can do is we could basically just say, okay, start from maybe a random location and just go, right? So this is an individual firework. So we're going to probably create a whole bunch of these. So the firework is going to need the thing that launches. What is that? What would I call that? The rocket, I guess. So we can call that this dot rocket equals new rocket. So we know we need something like this, which means we also need a location. So let's definitely put in here a location. So we're just going to say location, this dot location equals location, because now we can say this dot rocket equals location, because the rocket begins at the location the firework begins at. So when we run the firework, that's going to run the rocket, I suppose. Because we could have a run method here. And all that this is really doing is it's going to say, it's going to be like run this dot update, this dot display. A display. So if I think about it, does the firework ever actually display anything on its own? I'm not really sure. If we really think about it, what is a firework doing? The firework is the entire thing, but this is a container class. It's going to contain instances of the other classes, and it's going to tell them to run and do their things. So if we say, okay, run, we may not even need to say update or something. We'll just tell it in run, we just say like, okay, begin right here. So let's say we place the rocket down and it just starts. So we could maybe get away without having either of these, and we can just say this dot rocket dot display. Okay, that's cool. But of course, this means now we need a rocket. This will take a location, and then we'll do the same thing. This dot location equals location. We can do a size, so this dot rockets are typically like, you know, narrow, like rectangular things almost looking from the outside. Although we know they are cylindrical, let's do a rectangular and keep this all blocky. We could also do a circle, so, but I want to do a rectangle for this. So this dot width equals maybe 3. This dot height equals, let's do something like 6. Not sure what else I would need to do here. So we have just a display. And all we're going to do is we're going to tell it to display the rocket at the location. So let's say I shouldn't need to say color or fill. Maybe I can just say select. Let's see, we've got image, shape. Okay, so it is rect. We need rect, and then it's going to be the x and a y. So this dot location dot x, this dot location dot y, and then this dot width, this dot height. So let's try this, and of course we have to remember to bring in index.html. So it sounds like we need the rocket here first, and then what was the other one? Just the firework itself. Oh, and of course, that won't do anything until I come back to main.js and we actually load it up. So let's do something like let firework equals new firework, and we need a location. So const location equals create vector. Let's put this sort of in a bottom center. So it's going to be width divided by 2 and height. So now I can just say location, and then instead of ellipse here, we're just going to say firework.run. Alright, so nothing is displaying. I've got nothing on the screen here. Let's make sure everything loaded up. So I've got sources. One thing I notice is that just main.js is loading up. I have these script sources, but you'll notice nothing else is. Oh, there it is. Now they're all here. Okay, back to console log. I'm not seeing anything at all. Maybe it's too small, or it's not exactly where I think it should be. Let's try something. Let's put a console log in there. So inside of Rocket, inside of display, we can say console.log rocket. Well, okay, so Rocket's printing out, so we definitely know that it's supposed to be displaying here. So we can do rect location.x. So we know that it's supposed to be in the center, right? Like width divided by 2. Width divided by 2, and then the height, so all the way down to the bottom. Now I could tell this to go right into the middle. So maybe. Okay, there's our rocket. So it started a little bit, maybe a little bit below. Oh no, right. Okay, so it's actually going to start at the top, at the top left of this. So by starting down at height, it's actually below the screen, which I actually suppose is kind of a good thing. So having that is perfect. Now it's full size again. Let's do height. I'm just going to keep that. Okay, so it's sort of not showing anything. Maybe what might be good is inside of main, we can draw sort of a line at the bottom. So we can say line from 0. So from the left, it's going to be x is 0, height to width, height. Might have to subtract these by 1. Okay, there's our line. So our rocket is starting right in the middle here, just underneath it. And then it's going to shoot up. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is have the rocket actually fly. We could basically say, okay, now rocket, as you go up, fly up. So let's have that happen. So we shouldn't have, well, should we have to do anything here? It basically, not in main, in firework, instead of just run this rocket display, we probably want this dot rocket dot run itself. Or we can do like this dot rocket dot update. Let's try that. Say this dot rocket dot fly, launch, go. I'll just do run. Move the display from there. Now in a rocket, we need. So to begin with, we could just say this dot display, and that would be exactly what we have right now. But what we should probably consider doing is basically telling it, okay, we need you to move upwards and slightly faster as time goes on, as it is launching, like, or do we want just something going up on its own? Let's think about it. We can play around with it and figure it out. So let's do this dot acceleration equals create vector. We don't want to accelerate at all, so it's going to be 0, 0. Dot velocity. Create vector. We want no width movement, no left or right, so like 0. And then height, let's do -1 and see how fast that is. So then in run, we need to say this dot update, this dot display. Okay, so here in update, we're just going to say apply the vectors to make it move. So this dot velocity dot add this dot acceleration, this dot location dot add this dot velocity, And then I know we don't have any acceleration now, but we might. So I'm just going to be doing this anyways. We're just going to say this dot acceleration dot multiply by 0. Just in case we do end up with anything in acceleration, I want to reset that here. That should cause it to start rising up. Let's try it. There we go. Now we get this black mark here. That's because inside of main.js, we need to reset the canvas and draw that out. So we're just going to say background 255 to make it. Should we make this a white background or a black background? Let's try, I don't know, what do you guys think? Black background, make it night. Sounds good. Okay, so now you can see, here's our little rocket flying up. And then eventually, at some point, we want it to explode. So, how do we know that the rocket's reached its end of its life and ready to explode? Well, that should be the fuel, right? So we can have this dot fuel equals, I'm going to arbitrarily say 100. I don't know how long this is going to last. We'll play around with it. And what we can do is in update, we're just going to say this dot fuel minus equals 1. So we're just going to use fuel up as it moves up. Then the rocket is itself going to have a payload. So what we should really do is just say if fuel is less than or equal to 0, then let's just, we can run this dot explode. Okay, and in here, let's just, for right now, we're just going to say console.log explode. So it's not really, error. Fuel is not defined. That's because it needs to be this dot fuel. Okay, so it looks like it was about right here, which is a little bit not cool. We can also say that this rect will not display. So this should also be if this dot fuel is greater than 0, then display this. So we should now see this rectangle disappear. Yeah, it disappeared right around here. Also, I can't tell, but I think this is really small inside of the preview. Oh, but I can definitely see it. Okay, let me know if you want that a little bit bigger, but I think I can see it in my small preview, so I'm gonna keep that for right now. Okay, so we have the display, we have this stuff. Let's try to make it so it reaches around here. So I'm gonna triple its fuel. Right here, pretty much right in the center. Okay, perfect. So, with that being said, let's make it so that when it reaches the end, it explodes, which means, of course, we're going to have the sort of the shower, all the particles that go out. So how would I could create another particle class, a particle creator as it were. What would we call them? Like sparks or flames, or we already have firework. Actually don't know what the little balls of light that come out of fireworks are. Like technically what their name is. Let's call them sparks. I think that's fine. Or payload? Could be the payload. Yeah, let's try payload. So in here, when the rocket is constructed, it's going to get a random payload. So we're going to say this dot payload equals new payload. Now we can't give it the location yet because this rocket is still moving up. So it needs to start at the new location. So what we can do, we have the instance of it, is when we reach the end, when we've exploded, we can also say this dot payload dot set location equals set location and then this dot location. Okay, so then we'll set the location, and then in here it's going to be this dot payload dot run. Okay, so we have a lot of things going on. So like we have one, the main function is calling a class that's calling this class that's calling another class. So we're getting a little bit deep into the rabbit hole here. But I'm hoping this will allow us to eventually launch off a whole bunch of rockets. Okay, so we need just a payload itself. We need set location, and we need run. Payload.js. So class payload constructor. This doesn't take anything right here, but we will need this dot location. It doesn't take anything right now, but it takes set location and a location. And then here we're just going to say this dot location equals location dot copy, just to make sure we get a unique copy of it instead of a reference to its location in memory. Although it would be interesting because I could say that when we create the payload, it's aware of where the rocket is, but I think it's easier just to say like, hey, you know what, don't care about anything, just explode, whatever you are. Alright, let's figure out like color. So we can say this dot color, let's make the first one red. So I'm gonna make this an object. Red 255 0 blue. This dot size. I'm going to make this pixels in size. So then we have a run method. And this run method is simply going to be, well, eventually we're going to have a this dot update to make it happen. And this dot update, I mean, we're simply going to be, am I going to need a individual particle? I actually might need an individual particle to come here. So like the payload is going to be a whole bunch of particles. And then I can just loop through them and tell them to run. So payload is simply a holder class for a whole bunch of particle class. Okay, so we don't care about this or the color. We have the payload, we set the location, we have run. This is gonna take another thing, isn't it? This is gonna have to do something like this dot particles. I'll call it this dot sparks equals an empty array, but when we create it, we need to say how many there are. So we can do something like that, and then we'll have to do like for that I equals 0, I is less than, I don't know, 25, let's say, plus, then we can just say dot sparks dot push new spark, and then we'll have to pass it this dot location. Oh, but okay, so this dot location is going to be interesting. So maybe I do want to pass it a reference to the location so that wherever it explodes at the end. So let's do that. So this would give us an array of these. So we really want to say location here equals location. Don't need set location at all. And we have this dot sparks dot push. We get a new spark, we throw it in there, and then run is going to be update, where we have to tell each spark to do its thing. So for right now, what I want to do for run is just console.log payload running. That way, we don't worry too much about this. But we do need a spark. We need to add payload into the index.html file. So it's getting fun. Okay, we need spark, payload. Class spark, constructor. This takes a location. Okay, for the spark, what we can do is this one can take a copy. So this location equals location.copy. And for right now, I don't think we're doing anything with it, so I'm just going to save it. I want to run this and see if we get any errors. We do. Cannot read copy of undefined spark line 3. Okay, so what is being passed in this time? Location equals undefined. So let's find out who's calling it. I believe the payload calls the spark. Right, because in Rocket, I need to actually pass in this dot payload equals new payload, this dot location, and we don't need to now say this dot set location. Okay, there now we have it appropriate. Happened a whole bunch of times, 25 times probably. And now everything works, and explode and payload running. Awesome. Okay. Now, of course, that's running pretty much infinitely because we don't actually have it. Okay, so now we have a Spark that's actually doing what we want it to do. In our payload, it's just run payload running. So here we can say this dot sparks dot for each spark we may want to I'm gonna need not that, this one. I'm gonna need to get spark and the index. And so inside of here, we're just gonna say, okay, for each one of these, we want spark.run. Okay, so that should now make it so we can go not to rocket, but to spark. Say run. Okay, so here's where we can say things like this dot size equals this dot color equals, let's for right now make these all red. Say red 255, blue I'm gonna do green first just to make myself feel okay. Blue 0. Okay, so in run, I don't need an update right now. I'm just gonna say this dot display. All right, inside of here, we can just say ellipse. And I guess before this, we need to set the color, don't we? I think we need, let's figure out what we need. Reference, color. So fill is going to be filling in shapes. And then we can do something like no stroke. Disable drawing the stroke outline. Okay, let's just do no stroke. So we're gonna say no stroke, and then we can say fill is gonna be this dot color dot red, this dot color dot green, this dot color dot blue, just like that. So that's just the color. Then we can say ellipse, and it's going to be what? The x and y. So this dot location dot x, this dot location dot y, and then the size. This dot size. That should make a circle. 25 circles really close to each other. So let's figure out here. Move this breakpoint. This comes up. It should disappear and be replaced by nothing. We got explode. Well, that's sad. Okay. So let's also console.log spark. Let's make sure the spark is running. Spark is definitely running. It's running 25 times for every explosion. That's good to know. Unfortunately, isn't displaying here. And I wonder if that's... I mean, that shouldn't be because of anything else. Let's come back up to Rocket. First of all, I shouldn't need console log explode. Okay, so what do we have here? We have if fuel, gonna remove the explode there. We're just not gonna do anything with it for right this second. This.payload.run. Okay, that's good. We should also probably stop movement upwards. I think that's important. This should all probably be in an if-else statement here. So if this dot fuel is greater than 0, otherwise, we just do this dot payload let it run. So like, start to do that. I'm not sure that's actually going to change anything, but let's. Oh, take a look at this. So our red dot ended up right here, so it never really launched. So let's take a look. This dot fuel is greater than 0. Do this. This dot fuel -1. This dot payload ran way too fast. What happened? If this dot fuel is greater than 0, display the rectangle. We have fuel that's greater than rectangle. Why are you not wanting to display? I think I screwed up the else statement. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, so we sent our rocket up. It disappeared completely. Now our location is still going. Now, Spark is definitely going and increasing exponentially. Should stop those. Hoping it died again immediately. Oh, here it is right here. It's the dot right there, so it's got the wrong location. So this location, oh, it copied at the wrong time. So if I start with just this location, that should make it so that it creates the dot in the right place. I still need to, at the right time, tell it, yeah, there's our dot. We need to tell it the exact right time. Now copy and create a new one. So we'll start here. But when we create the spark, One thing we can do is we don't have to preload the sparks, right? We can have the sparks sort of come into existence right at the time of the explosion. So if I say, if I put this copy back here, and inside of, so in the rocket, we do this.payload.run. This run here, this happens right here to begin with. So in payload, pass it the location, but maybe here's where we can do something like set the location. Or we can do things like start. I guess we could also do things like play around, like let the spark be aware of itself. Like if it has if they themselves have maximum time to live, then they need to reset their location. It feels a little bit odd. I mean, the problem is when we come to Spark, we need to tell it to start from here. So maybe this will be the starting location. Because I can say starting location. Well, we basically need to say, like, when you fire, the first time, go. So just because I can't necessarily think of a better way to do this, I'm going to say this dot launched equals false. Then in run, we can say this dot update okay, so if we have, all right, we're going to say, just to hold this here, I'm going to say this dot location, let's keep it right there empty. We're going to say in update if this dot, so if not this dot launched, then I want to say this dot location equals this dot starting location dot copy. So we'll copy it right there. Of course, if I do that, I also need to immediately launch it. So I actually do want the brackets because I want to make this multiple line. And then we can say this dot launched equals true. From there, we now want to do the normal thing where we just say, like, okay, now go off in a direction. So we can now say this dot acceleration equals create vector acceleration. This is going to be a little bit interesting. What if we say, I suddenly come to the realization I'm not exactly sure how to coordinate all of these. So when I create the sparks, I sometimes want to say like I want to create a ring, right? Well, I need to know like this one's going off this direction, this one's going off slightly this way. So this may, like when I set the spark, I may need to tell it when I create it which direction it's going to go so that it knows. Otherwise, it's just going to be unknowing. For right now, let's say we do it just maybe left. So acceleration, this should be 0, 0. I'm going to do this dot velocity equals create vector. This is going to be negative 1, 0. And I will eventually need time to live. For right now, it's just going to sort of like go off forever. So we have that. Once we determine if we've launched, we're going to do our standard apply acceleration to velocity. So we're going to say this dot velocity dot add this dot acceleration, this dot location dot add. This dot velocity and this dot acceleration dot multiply by 0. So if I do that, I'm curious if I'm going to get sort of like a red thing like scooting off to the left. Yeah, exactly like that. Okay, so that's cool. That's good. Well, we also need a time to live. This dot time to live equals 100 Gauloids up here. So maybe like just really quick, something like 50. So that way down here I can say this dot time to live minus equals 1. Then in display, well, here's where I can have maybe another function where is dead. And it's going to just simply return this dot time to live is less than or equal to 0. So that way, inside of payload, where we run this, we run Spark, and then we can say if Spark dot is dead, then we want to remove it from here. So we can say this dot sparks dot splice I 1. So that should remove the red thing after it dies. We'll see how long this takes. Not very long. Perfect though. I kind of like that. We can play around with the timings a little bit later. Now, one thing we can do is like we can move all around this and say, hey, when we're done with this payload, when all of these are done, we can say is done is simply gonna return this dot sparks dot length is equal to 0. The payload is in the rocket, so the rocket with this this dot payload dot run we will simply have is done, so we can have a is finished, and this simply return this dot payload dot is done like that. So the entire point about that is we can come into main now, and then we could eventually create a whole bunch of these fireworks and do the same thing where we have an array of them, and we're going to remove them as soon as the firework is finished. But until then, I just want that. Let's make sure that we have no errors coming in. Okay, perfect. So the next thing we want to do is, for our payload, when we create these sparks, we need to tell it where to go, like what direction to put these in. I mean, I suppose we could set it to be random. And we could try that. You can basically say spark, our velocity is actually going to be completely random. We can just say random from -1 to 1, random from -1 to 1. All right, let's see what we got. It's not too bad, right? I sort of like the little bit of the fading because I kind of like this one. It's completely random. So if I wanted to make it, let's say, a circle, I need to say like, okay, you go like upwards, and then you go a little bit to the right and go that way, and then you go this way. So if here's where it's going to get a little bit interesting. I need to take a circle and I need to figure out how many points are on that circle, and then decide how many create the vectors appropriately, which feels a little bit tough. For right now, I kind of like this is like a very basic working version. Okay, so let's try creating a whole bunch of them. So to begin with, this should all be fine. In Spark we have isDead, Payload we have isDone, and Rocket we have isFinished. So that means in main, we now need fireworks equals an empty array. And so here, say for let I equal 0, I is less than, let's do 5 to begin with. Okay, so console location, we create the location, it's going to be right in the middle to begin with, which this seems not quite as awesome. Let's just do a random location. So it's going to be random between, let's say, 50 in and width minus 50, like that. And then firework, we're not going to do firework.new, we're going to do fireworks.push. Do something like this. Okay, so fireworks push, new firework location. And then in draw, we just need to now loop through these. So fireworks dot for each. We'll do again, see same thing where we have firework and the I. And so inside of these ones, we have the is finished, right? So if firework dot is finished, then we want to splice this out. So we're going to say fireworks dot splice I and 1. Let's see it. Error. Firework.isFinished is not a function. Right, because we have the rocket is finished, but we're doing this on firework, which has this dot rocket run. So we can do another is finished. Simply return this dot rocket dot finished. Let's try that. Hey, and they all disappeared at the end. And theoretically, this means that my fireworks is now an empty array. Perfect. Exactly what we wanted. So, cool thing here is we're able to launch them all, but that's kind of not how fireworks really work in real life, is it? In real life, fireworks will come all over the screen, and also we will they won't all launch at the same time, except at the very end when we have our finale. What we really want to do here is probably say launch and then like stagger them maybe randomly. Let's try that. So inside of main, we need to have a const, I guess maybe not con. We need sort of a random time to add these. So we don't necessarily add these here. We need to put this into a function. So let's remove this. So those lines, I'm just going to say function add firework. Okay, so that adds a firework in. And maybe in draw, we can tell it to randomly add a firework. Either that, or we will set a timeout. So maybe like in setup, we could say set interval and then we'll just add firework. And let's just do this right now every at a random time between half a second and 3 seconds. I'm curious to see what this will look like. Nothing really, it's not adding fireworks, unfortunately. I wonder if add firework is actually being execute it. Oh, I don't need to do this. Hold on. That's what I want. Oh, this is still enough for loop where it's creating 5 at a time. That's not what I want. I just want this to add a single one. Okay, so now we're adding like little bits of fireworks here, like that. All right, so oh, look at these. These are now all red because of the fill. So we need to fix that. So the rocket itself in display, we need to say no stroke fill is 255. That should make it so that the first one and all the ones after the explosions are white. Perfect. Okay, so that's exactly what they are now. Last things, these feel really slow. We can speed them up a little bit. So instead of velocity -1, we can maybe make them like -5, which means we probably need to remove the fuel down like 200. Significantly more than 200 because they're off the screen. All right, this feels so much better. Then we should make this fuel sort of like this. Maybe should be the cap, but we should change the fuel to be a random number. So random between 75 and 100, 15 maybe. So now some of them will be really high, some will be slightly lower. Probably even go lower than 75. 50. All right, so I feel like things are sort of starting to come together. And what we can do is we can also make the colors random too. And I think it would be okay to make these a little bit faster as well. So let's go into Spark. Right now has this dot color. I like the idea of the sparks all be the same color. So what I actually want to do is this has a location and also color coming in like that. We'll say color. Let's come out of here and go into payload. So we can then say color equals, there we go. All right, so what we really want to do here though is choose a color randomly. So maybe it should be this dot random color. So we can do const r. Okay, so const red equals random between 0 and 256. This will be green, blue, and then we'll just return red, green, Okay, this should now make them random colors when they explode. Oh man, okay, so they're still all random colors, which is cool, but that's not exactly what I wanted. I was hoping... Right, you know what? I put the color in the wrong place. This needs to come up here. Then this will make them all a solid, same color. Okay, so let's maybe increase the rate of it too. That's going to be back in main. Set interval. Let's make this between 50 and 1 second. So we should get even more faster. Okay, I think this is pretty cool. Like we've got some interesting effects going on here. I like this a lot. You know, one other thing that I really like the idea of is like wind coming in and affecting this too. Because if wind comes in, like these things are going to sort of like, they're not always going to go straight up. They're going to tilt a little bit and move slightly left and right. So maybe when we launch the rocket, so in Firework, when we launch the rocket, but sort of tilt it. So this dot, so initial velocity, no, this dot rocket dot run. Right, okay, so we can tell the rocket to apply a force very slightly. So this dot force equals create vector. We're just going to do an x, so it's going to be random between maybe negative 0.0.01 and 0.01 and 0, so no y. So when we run this, we also want to tell the rocket this dot we want to do that here. We can give it the force here. Take a look. So inside of run, we can hand it the force. And before this dot update, we can say this dot apply force. So here, simply we're going to say this dot acceleration dot add, and then it's going to be a copy of this force. So this dot force dot copy, just in case there's a problem with it. And we should start seeing these rockets. Oh, force is not defined in Firework 9. This dot rocket dot run force. So right here was not defined in payload. Where do we put it? It wasn't payload, it was Firework. This dot rocket dot run force. Right, because it needs to be this dot force. Cannot read property copy if undefined, so it's still because that's not, okay, I put the this in the wrong place. So in apply force, it's not this dot force, it's that. I don't know if you can see, it's very subtle, but some of them actually are moving very slightly left and right. Yeah, okay, some of them are a little bit more pronounced than other ones, but this is super cool. I like this a lot. It's looking a lot of like a lot of fun. So let's try turning up the intensity a little bit. So we have set interval. If we have let sort of normal mode. Now we can say normal mode equals set interval. Now inside of draw, what we could do is we're running through all these things, but what we really want to do is we want to say, okay, if enough time has passed, then we want to reset. We want not only just reset, we want to dial up the intensity and maybe do a switch ourselves to, what is it called? The finale mode. So that would be like setting up another interval potentially. So we could say something like actually, you know what? I could probably do this without set interval. Let me think about this. If I do something like let num fireworks equals, let's say like 50. Then inside of draw here, we're going to say if num fireworks is greater than 0, then simply num fireworks minus equals 1. So reduce them down, like sort of like we're running out of fireworks. But, oh, and I guess we would want to have our set interval here. So when we run out of it, we clear the interval, and then we do the same amount, but now like pretty much all at the same time. So let's try that. Let's do let interval equals set interval. We're going to call add firework between 50 and 1 second, like that. But if we run out, okay, so if we run out of fireworks, then we want to make sure we clear the interval. So if interval, then just clear interval, and we'll pass it interval number. Then we can just say interval equal null because we're done with it. We're done clearing it, so we don't have to run that again. Then we have this interval, we've cleared the interval, but now we need to start again. But now instead what we can just do is we'll just say num fireworks equals maybe like 100 of them. And now we can say if num fireworks is greater than 0. Oh no, okay, so that's starting again. Alright, because I don't necessarily want to reset num fireworks to be over again. So let me think about this this logic for a second. We need to say we clear the interview so it stops running. But then I want to launch a whole bunch. That finale firework finale we do like 100 here. Okay, so if num fireworks is greater than 0, fireworks minus 1. Otherwise, if we have an interval, clear the interval, set interval to 0 so we don't do that again. And inside of here, we're going to now just add these in. So we're gonna have to say something like if finally is greater than 0, then add firework and finally minus equals 1. All right, this should add a whole bunch of them all at the same time. Let's see what happens. Oh my gosh. Our finale happened right away. That's not what I wanted. Okay, if num fireworks is greater than 1, num fireworks equals 50. So that should be fine there. That should just work. If num fireworks minus equals 1, but oh, you know what? It's because each of these things is going on. So in reality, I don't really need here because when I add the firework, it should remove from here. So what I really want to do is actually add something like this in. And then we can put in here fireworks minus equals 1. Now I want if num fireworks is less than or equal to 0. Then do this. Unexpected token closing main JS10. Still went straight to the finale. So we have set interval, we run this function. Wait a second, did I lose my number in set interval? I think I did. I want 50 And maybe, wait a second. No, this needs to be random. Oh, this is where the problem is. Okay, so now we're getting nothing at all, so clearly we're making improvements here. Set interval, add firework needs to be an actual function call. I think I ended up getting both. So it was interval, this interval ran way too fast maybe. Here we go. This is a much better show. It all depends upon how the random generator is feeling like going. Although one of the things is we have no idea. Oh, there we go. And there's our finale. And then we're done. All right, I'm liking this a lot. It's feeling a lot of fun. Now we have to refresh the page. So like improvements to this, we could make it so that when we click a button, it like starts the entire show, or something else. But this is a lot of fun. I like this a lot. It's sort of like we got a lot of randomness going on, but at the same time, it feels pretty fluid and dynamic. And then when we go through 50 of these, it just starts this finale, which is a huge number of them. One thing that is bothering me, and the very last change I'm going to make before I bring this stream to a close, is I want to bring the opacity of that, of the fireworks themselves just a little bit down, the rockets, because we have the, let's see. Fill is 255. I want to say this is maybe like 10. Make it really dim. Okay, that's too dim. Alright, so now I can barely see. It's a little tiny bit of sort of gray because of the opacity. Can I make different shapes of fireworks? Yeah, I probably could. I think that's going to be more math-based stuff, so I have to like figure out like, okay, how to make a circle to like send one to go up that way, one to go this way, one to go this way. I think it's definitely doable. Probably not during this stream. But until then, this has been a lot of fun. I'm gonna push this up. Fireworks. Fireworks show. Alright, so now if we play this again, we get all of our lovely fireworks, the entire fireworks show. Then it all ends. We'll wait till it finishes. That ends that. What I want to do now is once again, send this to you guys so that you guys can play around with this code, try it out, tweak it, see if you guys can come up with different shapes. I think it's I think it'll be something fun. And with that, I also want to try something different. I want to go to OBS, have my sort of ending screen. That one. Go there. And I tell you, it's the wrong one. Ending text, main overlay. Oh, I'm not actually seeing. Properties. I will tell you, this will be the fireworks. Okay, so I'm not actually sure how it's going to go. I'm going to make it so that the ending screen is going to be the fireworks now. So what that means is that I'm going to turn the stream off. And then, well, I'm going to switch over to the ending screen. When the fireworks are all done, I'm going to end the stream. But until then, thank you everybody for stopping by and watching. This has been a lot of fun to make. I want to keep on doing these sort of art ones. Maybe even after the talk is done, I might like keep on doing some of these because they're a lot of fun to make and they're really cool to do. So if this thing is interesting to you and you like it and you want to get notified when I stream next, click the follow button down below. I also tweet out around about an hour before I stream or so when I'm going to be streaming. You can find my Twitter in my my bio or profile. Other than that, I don't really have anything. So next planned stream will be on Wednesday around 8 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the show.